Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Angela Black. This show is called At This Moment here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the number one 100% listener-supported radio station on the planet and possibly beyond. So if you are planning on colonizing Mars, just take your Wi-Fi. You should be all right. The best way to keep this truth boat floating, if you've noticed during the commercial breaks, etc., they really aren't commercials. They're just promos for other shows here on Revolution Radio because we don't take a corporate agenda. We don't take political campaign. Basically, it's free speech here. Nobody owns us, and we love that. How do we do that? With donations from wonderful people like yourselves. So please do find yourself at the donate button at the side of the chat room. If you haven't visited the chat, well, by all means, join us. We're a happy family over there, and it's amazing. There are two studios that go simultaneously all day long, all week long. So there's both of those are happening at the same time in the chat room. And again, on the left is the donate button, or if you do go to the homepage, freedomslips.com, you will find there is a site to support button at the top of the page. And the best subscription, I think, on the planet is the $5 subscription to the archive. So, again, there's two studios going full time. So you cannot listen to both studios, A and B, at the same time in both ears and have a life and a brain and exist for any period of time. So I highly recommend the subscription to the archives. It's a mere $5 a month. How can you beat that? So anyway, this show's here every Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern / 7 p.m. Pacific, or in whichever time zone on the globe that you exist, live. And it's Studio B here, by the way, people, where all the cool kids hang out. So without further ado, I am so excited to introduce my guest for this evening. He's the one, he's the only, Pharmacist Benjamin Fuchs is my guest tonight. And welcome to the show, Ben. I had him hit mute. He'll be unmuting shortly. Don't worry. Anyway, well, I'll introduce.
How'd you know I was on mute?
Oh, it's
Has that been done before? Has that been done?
Yeah,
before?
it's like technical mute syndrome or something.
Okay.
I think that maybe they have a pill for that.
They have a pill for everything.
I know,
There's
right?
a pill for everything. In fact, it's probably the same pill they give you for fibromyalgia and depression and insomnia. Because really, when you come right down to it, there's not a lot of different kinds of pills. It's like the cereal aisle at the supermarket. There's not a lot of different cereals, but there's a lot of different cereals.
Uh-huh.
They're all different combinations of the same crap. And the same with drugs in the OTC section at the drugstore. If you go, the over-the-counter section of the drugstore, you go to nasal sprays and aspirins and such. They're all basically like 10 different chemicals, and they're rearrangements of those same 10 different chemicals. Likewise with prescription drugs. You've got basic families of drugs, and there's not a lot of them, maybe 10 or 12 or 15 different families. And then each one fits in, all the different companies have their own version. Some people like Snickers bars, some people like M&M's, some people like Mars bars, but they're all candy. And so there's all these different beta blockers, and there's these different serotonin reuptake inhibitors and different digestive products. And they're all basically the same stuff. And none of it is any good. And all of it, Angela, check this out. And I'm a pharmacist saying this. All of it is poisonous. I'm not saying that rhetorically. I'm not saying that poetically. I'm not saying that hyperbolically. I'm not being dramatic. I'm saying it literally. They are literally alkaloids. Their chemical nature is said to be alkaloids, which means they have certain characteristics, one of which is they're poisons. Poisons with a capital P. And the body's poison control system, which is housed largely in the liver, but scattered throughout the body's poison control system is charged with depoisoning them. And praise the Lord, we have this detoxification system, but that doesn't mean we want to go willy-nilly and abuse it the way we're abusing it, on top of which if we're taking a drug, we're presumably sick already, we're presumably already compromised, and now you want to put a poison into an already compromised system, and you're going to tell me that's making me better? We have a saying, don't, crap on my head, or don't, pee on my head and tell me it's raining. That's basically what's happening here.
Wow.
Oh, but you remember the Wizard of Oz? At the end of the Wizard of Oz, he goes, back where I come from, they couldn't give the Tin Man or the Straw Man a brain, but back where I come from, we have something called a medical diploma. Or no, I'm just kidding. But he says, we have something called, remember what I'm talking about? They can't give you real health, so they give you metrics.
Right.
They can't give you real health, so they give you a statistic or a number or a certificate that says that you're healthy because your cholesterol score is lower, because they can't really do anything for your heart. So they go with the cholesterol. It's the old joke. You ever hear the old joke where the guy loses his keys and the cop says, he's looking under the light for his keys, and the cop says, where'd you lose your keys? He says, oh, I lost them over there, but the light's better over here. And that's kind of like it is. We can't do anything for your heart, but we can lower your cholesterol. You know,
Yeah.
Well, what's that got to do? Well, we know that there's a 25% association between low cholesterol and high HDL and low LDL and heart disease, and you get a 1% increase here and a 2%. What? That's not going to help me. There's still a million people a year who have millions of people a year who die of heart disease, despite the fact that we can lower cholesterol, because we're missing the basics. And we're doing it. It's happening to us, I believe, because, and we're participating, we're abdicating a little bit, but it's happening to us because it disempowers us. When we're sick, we can't resist. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do. When
we're sick, we become patsies. And that's why, to me, as titillating and as interesting and as diabolical as I find, you know, the new, I don't want to say the new world order, but the new way that the world is moving, it really is, we can't fight it if we're sick. And our priorities have to be to get healthy and to get well and to free ourselves of the corporate medical model ASAP. Stat, we say in pharmacy, immediately, immediamente, and then we can move on to the more troublesome aspects in our culture and the way things seem to be developing. That's
well
my
put.
Take. Don't you think?
You know, fix yourself, you know,
Yes.
in soul and in health, you know, both at the same time.
All
because
of it.
You know, we're not going to be effective in sharing light if we are not healthy ourselves.
You're absolutely 100% correct. You know, I tell funny stories sometimes. Is it okay if I just ramble on like this?
Oh, my goodness, please.
Okay, good. All right, so I tell funny stories. Remember Fukushima a few years back when Fukushima happened, right? So I have a pharmacy. I sold it since, but I had a pharmacy at the time. And all skincare, by the way, and nutrition. No drugs in the pharmacy. It was all skin and nutrition. And then when Fukushima hit, all of a sudden everybody wanted potassium iodide. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And so I got calls. Oh my God, I got calls the first day, maybe, I don't know, every 10 minutes the phone rang for potassium iodide. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about it. I'm a pharmacist. I should have known this. And so I called all these places to try to get potassium iodide. Of course, everybody was out of potassium iodide. So I lost out on the big potassium iodide bonanza of 2010. But what I noticed was, even though everybody wanted potassium iodide, seemingly, the whole, you know, all of Colorado was looking for potassium iodide, when I drove back home that night from work, the line at Taco Bell was just as long as it had been the day before. Okay? Everybody wanted potassium iodide, but they still wanted to eat the burritos and the burgers, and we still wanted to do all of the things that we do in our life, but the brain is such a funny instrument. You know, it's obviously created this amazing reality of ours, but on the other hand, it takes shortcuts. It does this thing called heuristics. You know what a heuristic is? It's like a mental shortcut where it just sees the dramatic things, like, you know, terrorism. How many people does terrorism kill? Well, I don't know, 10,000 people a year or something like that, probably 20, you know? How many people die of car accidents? How many people die of cigarette smoking? You know, how many people die of, drunk driving, whatever, obesity, and there's a million things that people die from, but so the brain somehow jumps to the most dramatic examples of things, and we're led around by our noses by this tendency. And this was first understood by Sigmund Freud, who did it therapeutically, but then it became manipulated by his nephew, Edward Bernays. Have you talked about Edward Bernays at all?
I have not.
Edward Bernays was Sigmund Freud's nephew, and he took Sigmund Freud's very insightful and brilliant and revolutionary understandings about our unconscious drives and our unconscious motivations and what drives our behaviors. Nobody really knew about the unconscious before Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud was the first guy who said that there are these unconscious layers to our behaviors and to what motivates us to act. And then his nephew came to America and applied it to advertising and applied it to marketing. And then they took that understanding and they applied it to mass cultures in Germany. And Germany was an experiment. Nazi Germany was an experiment of how to take these mind control techniques that were being perfected in the world of psychotherapy with Sigmund Freud, in the world of marketing and advertising with Edward Bernays, and apply them to creating an entire culture, an entire country of hypnotically entranced human beings who would do our bidding. And they perfected it big time, and you know, it was a successful experiment. They blew it up, they self-destructed it, you know, after World War II, but they kept those understandings and they applied them. Then they started to really fine-tune them with chemicals, with LSD and with MDMA and with fluoride and all the different, you know, truth serums and barbiturates and all the different mind-altering drugs that were developed after the war in the 40s and 50s, to the point today where they can snap their little fingers and entire civilizations will move. You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, yes.
But we can be free of that. We have volition. Now, it's tough because we're imprinted through the culture and at a very young age, but I firmly believe that we are programmed to wake up, or we have a program in us that will allow us to wake up through good works like you're doing, and through the internet, and through people like myself who are out spreading the word tirelessly, to no benefit necessarily, or to little benefit for ourselves, but because we're awake. It's no fun to be awake, or I shouldn't say that. We're partially awake. I can't speak for you. I'll speak for myself. I'm partially awake, or even, maybe just going like, oh, is it morning time already? Oh, rubbing my eyes a little bit. I might be at that stage, but it's no fun to be awake by yourself. It's no fun to know about how glorious the living experience can be if you do it correctly by yourself, is it?
Not really, no.
You don't want to be out on the playground by yourself. You want friends, You're on the beach, metaphorically speaking. You're on the beach. You're enjoying life. Once you understand the power and control we really have over our existence, okay, we have a tremendous level of control over how we live our lives and how our reality takes shape through the choices we make, through our perceptions, through just understanding this. It's like we have a Ferrari in our psyches and our souls and our spirits are like this finely tuned engine, like a Ferrari, right? And you could do all kinds of things with this finely tuned engine if you know how to run it, you know how to use it. And once you start to understand that there is even this idea that you can understand how to use it, you want everybody to know. So
Absolutely.
I believe we're heading in the right direction.
That's great. Yeah, and that is, of course, through nutrition. And let me just tell everyone really quickly a little bit about your background in case they're not familiar, which is almost impossible these days on the Internet. You are all over the place, pharmacist Ben Fuchs. And here we go. So you're a nutritional pharmacist from Boulder, Colorado.
Right.
And you specialize in using nutritional supplements where other healthcare practitioners are using the toxic pharmaceuticals. And that's because years of study have led you to this. So I was wondering if you could elaborate. Well, first, let me tell everyone that you broadcast daily, and they can find you at brightsideben.com. Yes. And
I have several. The internet grew. I grew organically with the internet, so I'm pretty much all over the place, as you say. And if you just Google Pharmacist Ben, you'll get a million things. But my radio show is The Bright Side, and I named it for obvious reasons because I was so sick of the nasty, negative stuff that was on the radio all the time. So I called it The Bright Side, and it actually started off as more as a spiritual and a mental show, but they told me I better not do that it wasn't going to be very popular if I did that. Although that was 5 years ago, things have changed. So because I really did love nutrition, and I love working with chemistry, but you know what? I call it SMEP, the multiple levels of wellness and the multiple levels of disease, actually. I call SMEP, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. All disease, and I've been working with patients now for 32 years, okay? And no matter how dumb you are, in 32 years, you're going to figure out something or another. And what I've realized after 32 years is that at the core of all disease is spiritual crisis, a sense of separation from the universe, a sense of being marooned, of being alone, of having to do it yourself, of being disconnected from the abundance that is the very calling card, the very signature of Mother Nature, Gaia, the universe, whatever you want to call it. Everywhere we look, there's abundance, right? Everywhere you look, there is life. There is the life force in the ocean, on trees. How many leaves are on one tree? How many insects are in a forest? How many blades of grass are there on a lawn? I mean, we are at every turn we see abundance. We're on a planet that is spinning around in space around an iron core, generating a magnetic field. The whole planet is a magnetic field, and we have an energy crisis, right? So all we have to do is wake up to this sense of connection to the universe, and the first core of healing, the most important, the way I look at it, most important level of healing will be addressed. Then you got to work mentally and physically, or mentally and emotionally. As you think your thoughts, your body is created. As you feel your feelings, your body is created. And then you work with nutrition, and then you work with diet, and then you work with treating the body in this sacred and holy way. And by that I mean in a way that respects how the body was formed. The body you have today, Angela Black, you know how old it is? It's probably 500,000 years old. Now, I'm not saying you're 500,000 years old, although perhaps you are. That's going to be debated. But certainly your body is, the evolutionary form that your body has taken was honed hundreds of thousands of years ago. But over the last 200 years, okay, over the last 200 years, we have so radically changed how we interact with our environment in the most fundamental of ways, which is through food, that there's no way that the body can operate in its God-given, divinely mandated fashion. So we have to begin to understand that the body has a way it likes to eat, and it doesn't. McDonald's ain't on the menu. Taco Bell and cereal and Snickers bars. And I'm not a food Nazi, Angela. You may see me in the airport eating some Twizzlers. I don't want to hear about it, okay? Right? Or if I'm munching on a piece of pizza, whatever. That's not the point. We want to get this idea of good and bad and judgmentalism and guilt and, all of these counterproductive psychological aspects out of the equation. It's just a question of there's a certain way the body likes to eat. There's a certain way the body likes to interact with the environment. And it doesn't involve a lot of calories. For one, we are induced to eat by economic interests, and our drives to eat are perpetuated by a brain that thinks that there's a famine about to approach, because historically that's what would happen. The brain doesn't know there's a Snickers bar machine every 20 yards. It's preparing you for a famine. And between that and this kind of manipulative and devious economic drive to get us to eat more and more food against what's best for us, we have to respect the fact that we are being manipulated on these levels. In other words, when we drive by McDonald's, we don't want to drive through McDonald's. We want to drive by McDonald's. Mm-hmm. In fact, you want to give it the finger as you're driving by, let alone go through there and participate in the corporate swill, in enriching the corporate food model and in suppressing your body's God-given ability to be a vital living organism.
And if I may, and also, unfortunately, we've been inundated with trigger mechanisms. When I see that McDonald's commercial, which, by the way, I don't have a TV anymore, but it still surrounds us no matter what. When I see it, there's not a 400-pound person eating a hamburger in that commercial. There is a supermodel, that type of thing.
So drugs?
That trigger.
How about the drugs?
Oh yeah.
When people are on their cholesterol medication, they're climbing mountains at the same time, amazingly, or they're bungee jumping.
Right.
And,
right.
they're playing soccer or whatever the heck they're doing. They're with their kids and their families. They don't show us what's happening. But these are techniques that are the cost of doing business for being alive, number one. And they're techniques that we have to own as ours. We have encouraged the perpetrators of these techniques to continue doing them because we buy into them. When I was a kid, I asked this. I have a degree in broadcast journalism. I don't know if you know that. So I went to broadcasting school for a little bit, and I asked I had a professor, and I asked a marketing professor, and I asked him about Charmin, Mr. Whipple. Do you remember Mr. Whipple?
I do.
All right.
Squeeze the Charmin.
Squeeze the Charmin, right? And I was like 18 years old, 19 years old, and I don't even know if Mr. Whipple's still around. He's probably dead by now. This was 1979.
I think he did die, yes.
And I hated that commercial, and I thought it was the dumbest commercial ever. And I asked the guy, I said, why do these companies put on these commercials that are so patently offensive? They pander so low, and they are so tacky and schmaltzy and idiotic. Why do companies do it? You know what he said to me? He said, because people remember them. Because people remember them. And that's exactly why. They don't care about how disgusting it may look or how silly or how stupid. People remember them. One thing that gets me is commercials with kids. Another thing that gets me is where they sing you a song. Amazon now has one where they sing you a song about Prime. They do a theater number about Prime, Amazon Prime. You probably haven't seen it. And I get irritated. Or car commercials where they sing you a song about how wonderful the car is, right? Now, I'm an adult. If I want to buy a car, I want to see what the heck it is about the car that makes it a compelling offer for me, right? What the tires are like, or the engine, or the warranty, or the interior, or whatever. Somebody singing a song is not going to influence me to buy a car. But you know what? People remember songs. People remember jingles. Why? Because we take shortcuts. We take heuristics. We take leaps. We don't live the examined life. You ever hear that saying? The unexamined life is a life that's not worth living. Socrates said that. We do not live an examined life. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
We don't stop. We operate on shortcuts and on heuristics and on default. And the advertisers and the marketers and the people who are sucking our life force out of us and our energy out of us and our money out of us and our emotions out of us, they know that we operate in this fashion. They know better than we do. They know our every molecular trigger that is responsible for getting us to eat more Doritos. There are PhDs and the brightest minds in the world working in institutes in Philadelphia called the Morrell Institute, and in California called the Mansfield Institute. I don't remember what that one's called, where they come up with different flavors and spices, and not even real spices, but artificial chemicals to get you to eat more food, to get you to find the most disgusting of foods like Spam and processed meats to taste unbelievably delicious by manipulating our olfactory system or by manipulating our taste buds through chemistry. And so what we need to do is we need to wake up to this, because we can, Angela. We can stop. Before you want that French fry, what is to stop us from saying, what is the upside to this French fry? You know, what is the upside to that next French fry when you come right down to it? Is there an upside? No, it's a habit. It's a shortcut. We get triggered. We think a thought, we go to the French fry. We remember our childhood. We get a credit card bill, so we go to the French fry. But we can stop. And this is, by the way, called being mindful.
Right.
You ever hear that?
Yes.
Hear that term?
So being mindful is don't go to the French fry.
Hey, I developed a trick for not eating when I take long road trips, because I don't like stopping. I like to drive, and I like stopping. So when I was with my mom and my daughter, and we were taking a drive across country, and I decided I didn't want to stop to eat. That didn't make me very popular in the car, but I was driving. So I decided I didn't want to stop to eat. So you know what I did? Every time I felt like I was hungry, I took my attention. You have this thing called attention, right? And it usually goes wherever there's a shiny little object. That's usually where our attention goes.
Shiny,
right? Right? Exactly. Like Homer Simpson, right? We all have. That's why the Simpsons are so popular. It's our inner Homer Simpson, right? Shiny object, right? So everybody has this inner Homer Simpson, right? But it could be Lisa. It could be an inner Lisa. It could ask questions. It could be examining things. Do I want this? Do I want this French fry? Do I want this food? So anyway, what I was doing when I drove is I took my attention, this aspect of me that focuses on different things, and I moved it around. And I found that most of the time when I wanted to eat, I didn't really want to eat. My attention was in my head. And when I brought my attention down to my stomach, guess what? I wasn't hungry. I was hardly ever hungry when I put my attention in my stomach. And sure enough, my attention would go up to my head, especially if I thought something I didn't want to think, or I was, tired or restless or bored. My attention would go up to my head. All I did was gently put my attention back in my stomach and my belly area, and I noticed I wasn't hungry. And it worked the whole trip. And now I don't do it all the time, but if I don't want to eat, or I'm not supposed to eat, or I don't feel like, stopping what I'm doing to eat, now I know I can move my attention to my stomach, and more often than not, I'm not hungry. And not only that, but if I am hungry and I have a couple of bites, and then I move my attention back to my stomach, guess what? I'm not hungry anymore.
Yeah, the stomach is not a large organ.
Very small. Yes. Very small. Mm-hmm. And these are little things that we can do. You don't need your stomach stapled. You don't need Weight Watchers for that matter. They actually, Chris Christie, I don't know if you know, he is the
governor
right?
of New Jersey.
Right? Well, he used to be a big fat boy, and now he's just a little fat boy. He's a little less fat, but he's still pretty big, but he wasn't as big. You know what he did? He had his stomach stapled. Now, what does that say about us? That we would staple our stomach shut because either we don't know or we're not willing to move our attention around. Mm. That's good news, though, because we have so much room to get better. We have so many things we could do to improve the quality of our lives. So all of these things we're doing, taking prescription drugs, eating McDonald's, not understanding how to move our attention around, that's all good news, because these are all ways that we can get better.
Yeah, those are easily solvable when you really look at it.
Not only solvable, they're ways that we can up our game. Okay. We can have game. You know what I mean when I say we have game?
Yeah.
I used to have a girlfriend, and she used to tell me, you got to have game, And I loved that. She was young. She was younger than me. And I thought that was like a cool thing to say. I'd never heard that as I was growing up, but I really took that on. To have game means that you have skills. And life is like that. Life is like a game. And the object is not to win. The object is to enjoy it, like a kid enjoys the games. There's two different kinds of games. There's games where you win, and there's zero-sum games, and there's, I forgot what they call the other ones, actually, now that I think about it, but there's games where there's a winner and a loser, and there's games when everybody wins. There's games that kids play, like hide and seek, not like hide and seek, but like merry-go-rounds, where you're just playing for fun. And then there's the games where you win. Well, you can make life a game any way you want. And to me, that frame, that's called a frame, by the way. And when you reframe your existence and turn it into a game, that means you can get good at the game. And the way you get good at any game is you start to learn the rules of the game. And you start to make distinctions in the game. Well, my girlfriend will sometimes watch football with me. I don't watch that much football anymore, but I used to watch a lot of football, right? And I noticed that as my girlfriend started to develop distinctions in the game, she started to enjoy it more. So all of a sudden, when she first started watching, she didn't know what was going on. But then she saw that there's a thing called a first down, and there's a thing called 4 downs, and a touchdown, and a field goal. And all of a sudden, her enjoyment of the game increased. Mm-hmm. So all of the things we're talking about on this program that we've been talking about for like the last half hour, and that I talk about every day on the radio, and probably you talk about, are really ways that we can up our skill set so we can play a better game, so we can have more fun with the game, so we can improve our game.
That's great. And you're talking about actual real life, because I just want to clarify that unfortunately for a lot of people, a game is something that involves war and it's on your smartphone. You know what I mean?
Is that what it's devolved to?
Yeah, unfortunately. And it's just so interesting. And they've got Kate Upton as the, for there's one called Game of War. And
is that who that is? Is that Kate Upton?
Yeah, that's Kate Upton.
Oh, I didn't know that was Kate Upton. Yeah, I know the commercial you're talking about.
Yeah.
Those are alternative realities. I gotta tell you about these alternative.
And let me just say, it's a way to sit on your you know what, and so it's not the game that you're speaking about. That's all.
No, I'm talking about game as in a kid playing a game. Mm-hmm. Our souls are chilled. I believe. I can't prove this, but I believe this. And I've read a lot of near-death experience books, and I've had a near-death experience. And from everything I've read and from everything I've experienced myself and from my own intuition, I believe that our soul is playing a game. And this is a fun experience. And while the body, the flesh, the protoplasm, as Dr. David Hawkins calls it, the protoplasm, that is going to go the way of, all living, all flesh and blood entities. But the soul, I believe, and the spirit behind that, I believe, are eternal. And I think on some level, this soul, no matter how miserable it is on the outside, is playing a game. And my mission, and I would maybe suggest other people examine this for themselves, is to get to know that soul, to get to know that eternal part of myself, to make a connection with that aspect that is playing that game, that is having fun, that knows it's eternal, that knows it's dreaming a dream, a lucid dream, and get in touch with that so that I can somehow leverage the potential joy that is available, like there is from playing any game.
Mm-hmm. And basically attain more excellence each day.
More fun. My word's fun.
Nice.
In Boulder here, everybody does yoga, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've heard yoga, obviously. 20 years ago, people wouldn't have heard of it, but today we've all heard the term. But do you know what yoga means, the word?
Mm-mm.
Interesting, right? Well, here's the thing about yoga. There's many different kinds of yoga. The yoga everybody knows about is called Hatha yoga, or maybe Bikram yoga, or there's a few different ones, Ashtanga yoga. And these are yogas of moving the body around, where you hold your body in different positions and stretch, etc. But that's not all yoga is. Yoga, the word, Y-O-G-A, is Sanskrit for yoke, Y-O-L-K. Now, like to yoke a cow, to connect. To yoke is to connect when you yoke something. Like, you ever hear the term equally yoked?
Mm-hmm.
To be yoked is to connect. So yoga is a way of connecting to spirit, to connecting to this eternal force that I was just talking about. And in the old days, ancient people would hold their bodies in certain ways in order to maximize their connection. They were primitive. They weren't as mental as we are today. But there's different kinds of yogas. There's something called Raja Yoga, which is the yoga of the mind, where you use the mind to connect to spirit, to connect to God. There is Dharma Yoga, which is the yoga of work, where you use your work to get to spirit or to get to God. There is karma yoga. There's mantra yoga. There's tantra yoga. There's all various different bhakti yoga, yoga devotion. There's all these different ways to connect to God, to do yoga. Well, I invented my own way of connecting to God, to Connected to Spirit, because everybody in Boulder did yoga. I said, you know what? I have my own way of doing yoga. I have my own way of yoking to spirit, of connecting to God. And you know what I called it? I called it party yoga.
Party yoga.
Yes, the yoga of having a good time, okay? The yoga of enjoying your life. The yoga of dancing. The yoga of being a kid. What? Do you have any kids?
Yes, I do.
So, do you remember when your kid? I don't want to speak for you, but I remember when my kid was 4 years old, 5 years old. She would jump out of bed and she would run to the window. She couldn't wait to get out of bed and start her day and see what was happening outside, right?
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line, you end up not jumping out of bed, but pulling the covers over your head because you don't want to get out, right? Something happens. We lose that childlike joy for life, that joie de vivre. And to me, that is the ultimate way to connect to God. That's the ultimate gift that we can give God or spirit or our soul or whatever it is, the gift of enjoying our life, the gift of thrival versus survival.
Exactly. I completely relate and concur. Often the one thing that stands out about me when people, tell me commentary about my delivery on the radio is that, even in the midst of all the bad news, I try to find the fun in it. I love laughter. I enjoy jokes. I enjoy, just being light, and so I concur completely. And I'm looking. I'm going to look into party yoga
yoga. Well, here, check this out. You got you have two nervous systems, right? I don't know if you know this.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that, right? All right, so what's the nervous system? The nervous system is this electrical wiring that converts the outside world into the inside world. Do you understand how fundamental this is? The nervous system, which is it has extensions into the environment called your eyes and your ears and your nose, your senses. Your senses are basically extensions into the environment. You know how a snake will flick its tongue? Mm-hmm. What's it doing? It's sensing its environment, right? Mm-hmm. It's using its tongue the way we use our eyes. So our senses are our extensions into the environment, and these are the ends of the nervous system. The nervous system is a wiring system that takes the outside world and converts it into the inside world. Takes what we perceive as external and converts it into biochemistry or biology, internal. Make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, but you have two nervous systems. You have one nervous system that takes information that represents danger and interprets it into the body and puts it into the body and allows the body to create changes in its chemistry to respond to the danger. And it has another nervous system that recognizes love and laughter and joy and peace and safety. And it takes all of that information and puts it into the body and converts it into the biology of safety and love and joy. So you've got a nervous system that converts the biology of safety into love and joy, and you've got a second nervous system that takes the information that represents danger and turns it into survival. Are you making sense?
Yes, I'm following right along.
Health and wellness and anti-aging live under which system, do you suppose? The biology of health and wellness, and the biology of healing, and the biology of creativity, and the biology of fertility, and the biology of joie de vivre, and the biology of fighting cancer, and the biology of having beautiful, glowing skin, and the biology of having a healthy head of hair. Where do you think they live? Under which nervous systems rule?
Okay, and the first one was danger, and the second one was of joy? Is that what you said? Yes. Joy.
Yes.
Yay.
Every time God wants you in a hot tub. Every time you take a hot tub, every time you get a massage, every time you relax, every time you deep breathe, every time you dance, every time you take a nap, every time you have sex and have an orgasm, every time you have everything you love about life, you fight cancer, you live longer, you have much more beautiful skin, hair, and nails, you have every marker of health that you could want without drugs, without doctors, without surgery, without Obamacare, without insurance companies. Now, what is it going to be? A beta blocker that poisons your heart and a doctor sticking his finger up your you-know-what, or a hot tub? Okay.
B, hot tub.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make sense?
Absolutely.
All right.
And so did you start out as the typical
contrarian?
pharmacist?
No,
What's that?
I'm not. Do you think I would ever be a typical pharmacist?
No, I'm just kind of curious. So was it from the very beginning?
No, I was. But I was always troubled. I went to pharmacy school. I'm still a licensed pharmacist. I don't know how much longer they'll let me keep my license, actually. But
I'm kind of wondering about that.
I know. I keep waiting for that knock on the door, or that letter in the mail. But they can't do that, I don't think. I don't think they can.
Would that be the PPD, the Pharmacy Police Department? I'm not sure.
You never know. They may say, "Oh, he just committed suicide. He was depressed. We told him not to get on that helicopter." No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, he died in this mysterious crash. What happened? Oh, he was suicidal. Listen, I'm not suicidal and I'm not depressed. Just for the record. Okay. I'm just saying. Do you remember that guy with the Clinton?
Oh, yeah.
The guy who had the affair. What was his name? Vincent Foster?
I think so.
And they found this gun right next to him or something. It was like this Revolutionary War gun that he mysteriously got somehow. And it said he was depressed. And his wife was, no, he wasn't. He was happy. He was so sad.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not depressed. But no, when I was in pharmacy school, I was two things floored me when I was in pharmacy. Well, a few things. The first thing that floored me was the emphasis on drugs. And call me silly, but I wanted to go to pharmacy school to study food as drugs. I thought in pharmacy school you could study food as medicine because I was fascinated with the idea of using food as medicine. And I don't know why I didn't think of it, but when I went to pharmacy school and I had my introductory interview with the dean, he says to me, "What do you want to go to pharmacy school for?" I said, "I want to study food as medicine." And he just laughed. He thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever heard, apparently. And then he told me that all they did there was drugs, and they studied drugs. And I was like, okay, well, that was not what I intended, but, I'm already there, and I'd moved to Boulder, et cetera. So I decided and I heard pharmacists were making a lot of money, so I stuck with it. And in pharmacy school, I couldn't believe how much we studied the poisonous nature of drugs. For the life of me, I could not understand why I'm studying poisons when I want to help people. What is this link between poisoning the body and making it healthy? I couldn't understand that. And then in pharmacy school, we started to one of the things we study in pharmacy school is micronutrition and macronutrition as if it was drugs. We studied the medicinal properties of vitamins and the medicinal properties of minerals and the medicinal properties of protein and the medicinal properties of essential fatty acids. You follow me? Mm-hmm. We're studying how nutrients they have medicinal properties. They heal things. And we're studying drugs as toxins. And I'm thinking, well, why am I not just doing nutrition? What am I doing the toxic stuff for? And I started to really become a big-time nutrition junkie. And I was also an athlete, and I was also working out. And so I started to use nutrition in my life. And I started to notice results for me. And then when I graduated pharmacy school, I ended up in pharmacy school. I got all my internship hours working in the Blistex laboratory, actually, learning about skincare. And so I never really worked in drugstores. When I graduated pharmacy school and went to work in my first drugstore, I was absolutely floored by what was happening. I was complicit in poisoning America. I was giving the old people the poison. I was giving the kids the poison. And it was the same people who were coming in to get the poison over and over and over again, and they were getting more and more over the course of time. And I was noticing nobody was getting better, and I was noticing that the stuff that I was dispensing was toxic, and I was noticing that there was something called nutrition that people could actually use to make themselves get better. So guess what Ben started doing? I started to tell people to take vitamins. This was the 1980s when nobody really knew about nutrition. I started to tell people to take nutrition. I started telling them, you got a cold, get some zinc lozenges, get some vitamin C. You got acne, go get some vitamin A. Everybody needs to have a little bit of copper. I put people on whey protein. And I would do all probiotics before anybody ever heard of these things. I was just recommending them to people, and gradually I was telling people not to even take their medicine. Now, needless to say, Kmart wasn't too fond of that. They drew the line right there, and one day Mr. Ozier walked in, the district manager, God love him, and he goes, "Ben, you're just not cut out to be a Kmart pharmacist." And I was, no, he says, "Ben, you're just not cut out to be Kmart material." And I was like, "Oh, great. Okay, thank you. That's one of the kindest things you could ever say. Goodbye." And I started my own pharmacy. Except in my pharmacy, we didn't have any drugs. It was all skincare because that was really my expertise, and it was nutrition. And I started to dispense people nutritional supplements for their skin issues, and their blood pressure would drop. And I dispense vitamin A, for example, for somebody's acne, and their digestive system would improve. I dispense vitamin C for somebody's dry skin or for wrinkles, and they would stop getting colds or cold sores. I noticed that there were these relationships between nutrients, the skin, and the body. And so after doing it for a couple of years, I was like, everybody needs to hear this, because I couldn't just sit there by myself and know that people are dying and sick and suffering because they're missing nutrition, not because of prescription drugs. So I started to do talks. I went around the country eventually and started telling people about it. And I had the wonderful fortune of meeting this brilliant, absolutely mind-blowing naturopath and veterinarian, Dr. Joel Wallach. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. I know who he is, yes.
Okay, so I met him in the late 90s. Actually, I listened to Dead Doctors Don't Lie's tapes, and he was saying exactly what I knew from my personal experience and from pharmacy school. And I ended up meeting him, and we hit it off, and I got involved with the company, and they gave me a forum for helping spread the word, and then the internet came, and long story short, here we are today.
Wow, that's amazing. I know it must be much. The day you decided to, did you say the day you got fired from Kmart, I suppose, was probably the first day in a while that you slept well and looked in the mirror.
You
and
better believe it.
Yeah.
I've worked. I did for a short period. I went back. I started a little business where I went to work in drugstores. This is the glory days of pharmacy, where you could just make your own job basically and go to work in drugstores. But no, I couldn't do it for very long after that. And I was very fortunate that I had the background in skincare. I knew how to make very high-end skincare products because I worked for Blistex for 4 years. So I knew, and I worked with the guy who invented Blistex, who was a professor at the University of Colorado. And so I knew intimately how to do. Really, I had a very fine, highly refined skill set, and that was doing skincare products. To this day, that's really how I generate most of my income is through skin health. I call it skin health versus skin care. We could talk about skin if you like, because that's really
absolutely. I would absolutely love to. Yes.
Well, you wanted me just to pontificate here? Or
let's see. First of all, I want to let people know where they can find these products, and I wanted to ask you.
Well, go to truthtreatments.com. I call the product the truth because I'm so sick of the baloney. I don't know what kind of words I could use on the air here, but bull crap, if you know what I'm saying. I was so sick of it, and the world of skincare is so predatory and so manipulative. It's so twisted. I got sick of it, and I knew that there were things you could do to help people's skin topically, although most of beautiful skin is not topical, but there's definitely things you can do, wonderful things you could do topically. So I created a line of products called Truth Treatments. There's basically 4 products. I actually started a company, which I'm not supposed to talk about, so I can't tell you anything about it, but I did it for many years, and then I sold it recently, and then I started this new one.
I see. And so Youngevity. Youngevity.
Yes. Are you in Youngevity? Are you part of it?
No, I'm just learning. I'm just grasping all things pharmacist Ben.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm planning on it.
Well, it's a beautiful experience. Now, being a healthcare professional and having started at the ground floor, or I started when the company was only a year old. There were only a few hundred people in the company, and now it's a huge company. And I kind of grew with the company. But I can tell you that the people in Youngevity, the grassroots people, are the most beautiful people you'll ever meet. And people who run the company are the most beautiful people you'll ever meet. And we all have one thing in common, and that is we all come from different walks of life, and we bring different skill sets, and we operate in different ways. But we have one thing in common, and that is we all want to help people. We all want to make a difference in the world. And so the Youngevity family is really at the core. What really is its foundation is thousands upon thousands of people who want to make a living, who want to make money, who want to be independent, who want to be free of a 9-to-5 type of job, who want to control their existence, but who also want to help people, to make a difference. And they've seen the results with their own eyes. And when you go to the convention, the Youngevity convention, it's impossible not to be blown away by the stories you hear over and over and over again. And I'm a healthcare professional, so I've heard these stories myself for 32 years, repeatedly, not hundreds of times, thousands of times. People's blood pressure dropping, people losing not 100 pounds, 200 pounds, people getting off all of their medicine, people who were about to have their legs amputated because they had diabetes, no longer running on the stage because they got on a nutritional supplement program, people who have been told they got to be on insulin their whole lives, throwing their insulin away, never having diabetes again. All, number one, by understanding nutritional supplementation. Number two, understanding how to take care of foods, how to take care of the diet. And number three, understanding, most importantly, possibly, how to become independent and the author of your own life, your own authority in health and in wealth.
Very nice. That's amazing. So, being as experienced and knowledgeable about supplements, nutrition, et cetera, for you to be a pontificator regarding longevity, I don't think that was the correct word, but that's what I used. To be an advocate and a fan, and also I don't know if you're a distributor as well. Is that what that is?
I'm more of a. I guess, to tell you the truth, I don't even know what you'd call me, because I'm on the scientific board, and because I grew with the company, I am a distributor. I am a distributor, but I have a team of people.
Oh, I don't know if we just lost Ben. We might have. I think he's muting.
No, I pulled the plug out.
No worries. It's live radio. Used to it all. No problem.
So I don't know if they call me distributor. I don't know what you call me, but I have a team of people who help me manage everything I'm doing.
I see. Yeah, those are good. Teams of people are good. Okay. So I was jumping over to the longevity thing, but I jumped too quickly. We were talking about skincare, and you apparently had a line of skincare that you sold, and you're not allowed to talk about it. And then you've started a new line, yes, of products. Are you there? Hello, Ben.
Angela?
Yes.
I lost everything you just said.
Oh, that's okay.
Apparently I had what now?
I was saying that I had jumped a little quickly over to longevity, but you had a line of skincare products that you sold recently, so apparently that did very well. And you have now started a new line of products. Is that correct? Skincare products?
Well, I don't like the word line, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change the way people take care of their skin. For nearly 100 years now, what are we, 2020? Probably about 100 years now, 2015, I'd say right around 1920s, 1930s, this whole industry that we know today as the skincare industry really blossomed. Skincare was really kind of an indulgence. There was things like Cleopatra putting on coal in her eyes, and Egyptian women putting on makeup, etc. But really, skincare didn't get going until the early 1900s, when all of a sudden there was all of this industrial capacity, and there was the ability to create supply, and there was the beginnings of the ability to have demand. People were starting to have more free time, and people were getting wealthier. So businesses that were considered that would have been considered silly and frivolous and indulgent became legitimate ways to make money around the early 1900s. So this is when moisturizers were born and skincare was born. Problem was, in 1900, 1910, 1920, when moisturizers were being developed and skincare products as we know them today really had their birth, we didn't know what the skin was. We didn't know what nutrition was. We didn't know what hormones were. We didn't know what vitamins were. We had very primitive understandings of the body. But because of the supply chains that were in place, and because of all the margins that had been formed and developed, people extracting money along the way, nobody wanted to change the way we created skincare products and the way we treated our skin, even though our understandings of the skin have progressed exponentially just in the last 30 years. So we're using a technology that is antiquated and anachronistic and doesn't work in order to take care of what is one of the most intimate and important aspects of our health, and that is our skin. So that you have this whole population of people who are completely frustrated to the point of frustrated with how they take care of their skin, to the point where they're willing to inject poisons into it to paralyze the muscles so they don't have wrinkles. I mean, we inject fat and sugar. But it's only because we don't understand how to take care of our skin.
Right.
Nobody's taught us how to take care of the skin. Nobody's even taught us what the skin was. For example, do you know your skin is made up of layers?
Yes, I do know this.
Do you know that when you put a skincare product on, that you're putting a skincare product on the most superficial layer, which is basically a layer of fingernail-like material that keeps water out and keeps water in?
Yeah, and it's basically a permeable or semi-permeable.
No, impermeable.
Impermeable. There you go. Sorry, I was going for it.
It's not semi-permeable. There's nothing permeable about it. It's impermeable.
Okay.
It keeps you surviving. I don't want to say it's not totally impermeable, but it's pretty much impermeable. There's gases that will get through, and there's some things that will get through if you're clever. In fact, you can use the skin as a route of administration of medicines into the blood, transdermal creams and such. And I studied this in pharmacy school. So the paradigm of how we take care of our skin is based on a 100-year-old technology that is not only anachronistic, but doesn't serve us. And even worse, it allows us to disrespect the skin and the body to the extent that we rub poisons on our skin every day. Sunscreen, poison.
Yep.
Preservative, poison. Emulsifiers and surfactants, very often poisons. And we don't think anything of it. When I used to formulate products, many of the ingredients that I had to formulate skincare products with in the pharmacy had a skull and crossbones on them, including sunscreens, which every boneheaded dermatologist tells people to smear on their skin. What? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
A sunscreen is a deadly toxin, and you're going to smear it all over your skin twice every 2 hours? That's what they tell you to do. Are you crazy? That is what,
being a fair-skinned individual, I still stay away from sunscreen. I've never liked it on my skin. I've never felt good when I've done it, and so I just watch my sun intake. And
where did our human bodies grow up? We said our human bodies are 500,000 years old or so. Mm-hmm. Where did they grow up? Where did they develop? What part of the world?
Earth.
What part of Earth?
The water.
I'll give you a clue. It's a very hot continent.
It's a very hot continent?
Yes, human bodies were formed on a very hot continent.
Africa.
Yes,
yay,
exactly.
I got one right. Woo-woo.
Africa. And there was no sunscreens out there either. And the sun was just as hot as it is today. We would all be dead of friggin' skin cancer if it was really a problem with the sun. We wouldn't have survived. So obviously, we have done something different. Well, what is it that we've done different? We're nutritionally depleted, we're eating crappy food, and we're smearing sunscreen all over our skin. Do you know sunscreen is actually carcinogenic? Yes,
wow.
Sunscreen is carcinogenic. Now, they'll tell you, there's only small amounts here and there. Why do you think the FDA regulates how much you could put in a sunscreen? Do you know that there's top ends on how much you could put in a sunscreen you could put in a product?
I would hope so.
Yes, they're toxic. I don't know if it's not legally regulated, but you don't put more than, say, 7.5% of octylmethoxycinnamate and 0.5% of oxybenzone in there because you're going to cause some serious problems, especially the oxybenzone, by the way.
Interesting. And it also starts with oxy, which, I know that's an oxygen, type of prefix for said chemical, but, still, it's the first thing that comes to my mind is more poisonous drugs, oxy this, oxy that. But,
you got it. You got it. That's all you need to know.
And then also, when I put on sunscreen, or when I used to, and it's true, I do not put on sunscreen, but I did not know what you're telling me now. And I just always smelled something funky, it
Not
always
good.
Smelled weird. Yeah, just
Not
always,
nice.
and it never felt like my skin was breathing.
It's not good stuff.
Yeah.
If you really, 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 absolutely want a sun protection, first of all, internal nutrition is the best.
Interesting and
Yes.
great to know.
You want to hear something really cool? There's something that lives on planet Earth. Okay, 70% of the planet is not 70%, but large amounts of the planet are covered with it. Maybe 30% are covered with this stuff. And actually, if you include this other stuff, a large part of the planet is covered with this stuff. And this stuff has the ability to take the sun, to take solar energy, and convert it and detoxify it and make it into a usable substance. It turns it from a poisonous, radioactive substance into a usable nutritional element. And that stuff is called algae and grass. All right?
Okay.
And algae and grass contain pigments that will, and on all greens, all leaves, algae, grass, and leaves can contain pigments that can trap solar energy and make it into usable substance. Whether that usable substance is sugar, or whether that usable substance is fat, or whether that usable substance is micronutrition. And by eating those things, the algae and the greens and the reds and the blues, the carrots and the beets and the colored fruits and veggies and the brown algae and green algae and red algae, we will get the nutrients that are responsible for detoxifying the sun into our bodies. And when they get in our bodies, they will travel through our blood and go into our skin to act as a natural sunscreen. And the best natural sunscreens are going to be algae and the peels of fruits and eating vegetables, colored vegetables. That's your sunscreen from God. That's divine sunscreen.
That's amazing.
Yes, and also for your eyes too, by the way, because macular degeneration and many eye problems are like excessive sun damage to the eye. So everything I just told you for your skin, for protecting your skin, will protect your eyes from the sun as well.
Wow. Well, we have a break coming up, everyone. I'm going to try to talk Ben into staying for the next hour. I'll find out at this break. Everyone will be right back.